Hello. I have been missing for a little while because I've been just kind of editing for the Nashville Boogie and a few other things. So what I'm doing today is going to be a questions answered video. Gosh, my ears stopped up. It's driving me nuts. I actually have had a lot of people ask me questions over the months and years, and I actually try to do frequently asked questions videos as often as I can, but it's not something that happens too often. So I thought I'd go ahead and take care of some of your questions today. The first question that I was asked was by DLA Butina on either Facebook or Instagram. I didn't actually make a differentiation here in my notes as to what form of social media you asked the question on. And if you have further questions after this video, please email them to me. It's a lot easier for me to receive them via email. My email address is LisaFreemontStreet@gmail. So just make sure you check that Fremont has F-R-E-E in it, and just go ahead and send me any of your questions and we'll save that for next time. The first question is, you seem to have found a group of great people to surround yourself with. How did you get to be friends? All of my vintage loving friends are friends that I've met through social media, and they've all sort of been introduced to me at Viva Las Vegas or following me on YouTube. My very best friend Lulu lives out in San Francisco area, and she is actually someone that I met years ago through my Facebook channel, or my YouTube channel, and she emailed me, and it turned out we had a whole lot in common, including our beliefs. We're both Jehovah's Witnesses. I think you just naturally gravitate towards people who share that faith, and so anything else that you have in common is sort of icing on the cake. So most of the people that you see in my pictures and are in my pictures from Viva or things like that, all not only share my love of vintage, but they also share my lifestyles. We have the same driving force in our lives, so it just makes us have a natural, really, really close feeling and friendship. So that's my friends, my closest friends. And then I also was asked by Lauren Turcotte, I don't know if your name is pronounced Turcotte or Turcotte, I'm sorry. How do you get it all done? I get asked this question all the time. How do you have 4 children, a job, a YouTube channel, blah, blah, blah. My YouTube channel it's my hobby, but it is not my bread and butter, so therefore I devote time to it on a regular basis, but I don't use it as priority, so therefore if I miss a week or whatever, I don't beat myself up over it. I know that you guys understand. However, I do set aside one day of the week. I get 3 days off, so I set aside one day of the week for filming, and my family is very supportive of that. I wouldn't be able to do any of this if I didn't have a very supportive husband and a very supportive group of kids. So they all understand that this is my filming day, so they don't, you know, try to get me to do other things instead. They understand that I consider this another work day. So I have a free day, and then I have a day that I do chores, and then I have this day. So that's what I do every week, and that's how I get it done. I just have a really good support system. Do you try to stay true to an era, or do you mix eras? This is by Miss Vintage Spinner on Instagram, I believe. I actually do mix eras. Obviously. I love modern touches to vintage style. I feel like it's youthful, and I feel like it's a little bit more me. I really, really, really love pop culture, and I'm a big fan of just a lot of different things that I see in pop culture, so I allow myself to be influenced by them. It's not that I am a purist by any means when it comes to vintage. I prefer vintage hair and vintage makeup styles, but that's not something that I limit myself to. I have a vintage wardrobe, and then I have a modern wardrobe that I usually style in a classic way, but then I've got some kind of edgy pieces as well. So I do whatever I feel like at the time. I wear jeans and t-shirts sometimes to the store. I wear braids in my hair sometimes to the store. It's just basically up to what my specific, you know, what I'm going to be doing that day. If I take my kids to the park, sometimes I'll wear a little vintage dress and ballet flats, and then sometimes I'll wear jeans and, you know, a rock and roll t-shirt. It just depends on what I feel like at the time. So I'm definitely not, I don't stick to certain eras. However, vintage-wise, if I was going to pick an era that I love the most, it would be late 50s. I really love the late 50s. I love New Look when it was at its height, and I really, really love the hairstyles and makeup styles of the late 50s. So that's what I would probably gravitate to if I was going to be a purist, which I'm not. Inka Dinka Doo on Instagram. Do you keep your nails vintagey, and what is your nail routine? Okay, when I have nails, which is only if I have a gel overlay, I cannot grow my nails at all. They are so thin and weak, and I can't grow them at all unless there's some type of gel overlay. I will go like every couple of weeks to the salon and just have them done. And I love to have my nails done like all one color and then an accent nail. That's my favorite way to do my nails. However, I'm doing learning ukulele right now, so I had all my gels taken off, and instantly, I don't know if you can see, instantly they just like start peeling and splitting down really, really low, and I have horrible nails right now. So that's just naturally what happens when I get the gel taken off. It's always going to be weaker after you do that, but mine really, really weak, super weak. Tips for keeping long hair from tangling at night. This is from Elena Kimball. If you have long hair and you want to keep it from tangling at night, set it. Setting it is the best way to keep it from tangling at night. However, also a hairnet. If you have a set that you've already done and you just don't want it to tangle, use a hairnet. Just those invisible nets that you can get at Sally Beauty. Wear that at night, and your hair will not be tangled in the morning. It's really, really a fail-safe, age-old technique to keep tangles out of your hair. Stephanie Gamez, #1 go-to method of setting your hair. My favorite method to set my hair, and the one that I have the best consistent results with, is pin curls. Pin curls do really well on my hair. I make them smaller for tighter curls, I make them larger for larger curls, and if I use a good mousse or setting lotion beforehand, it will last me longer than any other style in high humidity. I used rock and rollers today. I also have good results with rock and rollers and foam rollers. I don't like to sleep in foam rollers as much as I do the rock and rollers, and I tend to use the rock and rollers to preserve a pin curl set as opposed to just setting my hair from straight. So if that is helpful to you, hopefully that is. Your top 10 classic movies. I actually have a blog that I did a long time ago about my top 10 classic movies. I don't want to go too much into that right now because we're already approaching 10 minutes, but my very favorite top five movies are probably The Women, A Room with a View, which is actually not like a vintage movie, but it's a classic movie. It's not like from the 40s, 50s, 60s. It's from the 80s, but it's one of my all-time favorite movies. It's by director James Ivory, and it's one of my favorite all-time movies. If you haven't seen it, please do. You'll fall in love with it. My favorite movie of all time is To Kill a Mockingbird. I think I've said this in another video. I also love Frank Capra movies, so in my top 5 for sure are You Can't Take It With You and Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, which are also some of my very favorites. But I'll do another blog post sometime. I'm just really, really lazy lately. Twileth Teg on, I think, Instagram or Facebook said, do you wear the same hairstyles all the time, and can you recommend updos for the medical field? I do tend to just wear loose curls. That's my signature thing that I do with my hair almost all the time. I hardly ever do anything too structured. However, updos for the medical field, I think the best possible updo for the medical field is to wear your hair in a net or a snood, because it will be vintage looking and really classic looking and super cute, but also it will be something that's very easy to maintain and will usually be within the codes of your medical profession, whatever their rules are. So if you put your hair in victory rolls in a snood on a regular basis, you will probably find that it's an adorable kind of fail-safe updo that you can do for the medical field. CLINA MUA, Clina MUA asked me, how do you dip your toe in vintage style without going full on? There are a lot of ways to do that, but I think the best way to do it is just to set your hair in some sort of curls. It doesn't matter if they're loose, it doesn't matter if they're tight. Curled hair is already going to give you a slightly vintage style, vintage aesthetic. And then just to wear classic clothing, you'll find that you will feel a little more polished, a little more put together, and it may inspire you to actually pick up some vintage or reproduction pieces. I feel like that whenever if you go and find a dress that you feel like is a 1950s house dress, and then you put your hair up in a poodle do, you're going to feel like you're dressed up like, straight out of I Love Lucy. You're going to feel like you're in costume. You don't want to feel that way. If that comes natural to you, then so be it. But if you feel like you want to dip your toe in vintage style, take a cue from Taylor Swift, take a cue from Zooey Deschanel. They both really like vintage clothing, but you'll notice that they're usually doing it in a more free-form, loose fashion when it comes to their hair and makeup. Usually they have their hair and their makeup very natural, and then they will usually amp it up with like a 50s house dress or some type of like little twin set cardigan or something like that that really shows that they love vintage style but still remains modern. And then if you decide that you want to do something a little more traditional eventually, then I think you'll have the more brevity to do it. Somebody asked me, a couple of people asked me, what are your political beliefs? And another one asked, or I get asked quite a lot, what does it mean to be a Jehovah's Witness? I'm not going to go into my beliefs right now. I feel like this is a bad place to do it. However, if you have questions about Jehovah's Witnesses, about our beliefs, feel free to email me at LisaFreemontStreet@gmail. I will go ahead and say that you will not see anything related to holidays or related to politics on my Instagram, on my Facebook, or anywhere on social media. I do not vote, and I am politically neutral, and I have very firm reasons for feeling that way. So, like I said, feel free to contact me if you have questions. Aranksa Brown said, how did you learn to do vintage styling? And also, what is your favorite thing about living in Memphis? I love Memphis because I feel like that there is a respect for the past here, and I also feel like that there is a respect for culture in general and great food. I, of course, am a big foodie, so that's a big deal for me. However, there are a lot of cons to living in Memphis as well, and I feel like that I have been able to find more pros than cons. So there's definitely not one specific thing, but it's just a general feeling that I really love about living, especially in Midtown Memphis. I learned to do vintage styling on my own entirely. I have vintage styling books. I love the movies, old movies, and I actually went full force in about 2006 into trying to learn how to wet set my hair because of the humid environment I live in, and so it's just not possible for me to do a heated set. And I found out that when I did a wet set, it looked very vintage, and I loved the way it looked, so I started to kind of full force go into that whole idea. But yeah, I learned it on my own entirely, from YouTube, from vintage styling books, and from just trying to recreate things I saw in movies. And some movies actually show the actors with the setting in their hair, like Stage Door, starring Ginger Rogers and Katharine Hepburn. It actually shows them with little rag rollers in their hair, and I kind of got a general idea of how to set my hair, where they kept the curlers out of the crown so that it would have that soft feeling around the face. And then I just kind of went with it from there. Hunter